The inspiration is basically, new love, the idea of finding new love or loving somebody for the first time, a first love, basically. And it was inspired from the idea of, my life, true life, with like the really bittersweet feeling of falling in love with somebody, but also having to have the little quarrels and fights and maybe a breakup. So it's all of the things kind of like evolved into one. That's what the album represents. But also within that, we have the first song of the album, which is a song purely about forgiveness, because I kind of held the motion that if you do not forgive, all of the past things that have happened to you, you might never learn to love fully. So we open the album with forgiveness, and then we go into the love parts, and it's such a beautiful experience for me when I was writing it, because it's like writing about everything happening in real time. So I was really, really excited about all of that process. Storytelling for the album happened while we were in the studio. So for this particular project, I collaborated with two German-based producers called Kitschkrieg. They're a duo. And, while we were at the studio, came with a lot of materials from my side, samples, songs I have recorded, demos, and then, put all of that in a folder and see what worked. For the grand scale of things, before even going into the studio to record the album, I knew that I wanted to make that idea of like love in a circular form of like hate, anger, total infatuation being linked in a circle. But I never knew what song was going to represent what. So being in the studio, we put out everything on the board, recorded everything that needed to be recorded, and kind of decided, oh, this could be there. This doesn't need to be in the project, which was also a very hard decision to make. But we did all of that while in the studio, and we're very happy with what we had. And for, the idea of like it going in a circle, it happened so organically because for the last song, Permit Me, originally it was not in the same, I think I briefly talked about this in the documentary as well. It was not in the same chords with the first song. It was switching it up that kind of like put us in that position, and we could, transist with the sample coming back. So everything really just happened organically while we were at the studio, and it's such a beautiful experience to look back at. Just to add to that, it's as equally as it's love, it's like love focusing on like a modern love. And with modern loves, I know like ages ago, people will write letters to themselves. Maybe people were more romantic with approaches. But with modern love, especially, a long distance kind of love, you only have the phone and you only have the telephone. So that was something I thought was going to be reoccurring, because I thought people could relate to the idea of, always having the phone as a device that you can reach back to somebody you love with. So it was reoccurring. We have the phone, sometimes a voicemail, sometimes it's a message being left. So it was, that was something as a detail that I thought, we should have in every single place of the album. But also it's like, there are just like this little things of like also the end of the album. It's like the beginning of the album. Yeah. And these are things that I'm always very excited when people, like a lot of people have been noticing these details, and, they tag me, and I just have this excitement and this rush because that's the reason why you do these things, that people notice them and also even acknowledge them, that it means something to them. So yeah, it is the ground. Having a vision is the groundwork of everything. I think my introduction to the arts was cinema, and so even my approach to music is very visual first. So I see what I need to write before I write it. And, when I write it, I now have to make what I saw in the beginning. So everything still goes back in a circle. And yeah, it informs the fact that, I will always be a filmmaker first, because it's the first thing I fell in love with. But it helps my music so much that, I owe the ability to be able to make the visuals, because, I was a filmmaker first as well. Yeah. So yeah, it's very connected at the end of the day. Definitely. The video for Atonement was inspired by my life story, growing up. Um, I grew up in a very small family in a very small village. And, as a kid, everybody, you have fears growing up. And one of my biggest fears were masquerades. Masquerades are traditional, um, they're very traditional things. Every culture has a different masquerade,
Yeah, yeah,
and
of course.
sometimes the culture is that if the masquerade sees you outside by a particular time, it's justified to hit you with a cane or something. So
Okay.
I always had a fear of like a masquerade, and I tried to represent the masquerade as like a sense of like a general fear, not just the fear of being a young boy, but also the fear of being an adult and growing older. And so everything was equally very poetic in a sense, but also there's like a storytelling line to how the video was approached. So it's a video very, very close to my heart because I remember when I was writing the song in the studio, I could already see that playing out. And I was so worried of like how do I put this into visuals? And I'm very happy that we were able to do that at the end of the day.
Pretty good.
I owe credits to Victor, who is my younger brother, for the photography. He was the director of photography for the project. We spoke so much and so long about how we wanted to approach every single shot, and so he's very much responsible for a lot of like the photography setups that you see in most of the recent videos that I have made. So yeah, one of the most beautiful things about this project is there were collaborations all around, and one of the first collaborations that was initiated was with a design um a design door based in Brussels, and they're called the Bold Artwork. And we brought them in from the beginning and from the onset, and explained the idea of what the album was. And together we had so many discussions about that, and then the idea that the basic idea was if people see the cover arts of the songs or the project, it should feel like it's a still from a film or from a very
Yeah, yeah.
cinematic film. And we had so much references, but I owe so much, you know, um, yeah, they are very much responsible for what we see as the cover arts, because at the end of the day, making that first was kind of like a big inspiration to how we were going to approach the visuals in terms of videos for the project. So it was such a beautiful step to take, and really really appreciate them for that. The photography was done by Jules Renault, who is a Paris-based photographer. And yeah, it was this project is a beautiful embodiment of collaboration all around. So I'm very happy.